Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Hope that you're doing well, and I hope that you're safe. Let's just say that. If you can guess the topic that we're not going to talk about today, yes, we're going to be the one news outlet that does not talk about that. But ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. I hope that everyone stays safe, stays as safe as they can. And our job today is not to report anything that may upset you, but instead, Ralph has a number of stories that hopefully uplift, make you happy. We got some good stuff here, stories 1 through 4. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to follow along, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including the show notes, past shows, future shows, articles, reviews, podcasts, everything and anything that we do here on the program. You can, of course, find at computeramerica.com. And right there at the top, it's like the third or fourth subsection that we have on the website. It's Ralph's segments. He, we have them all in one place so that if you want to check out the videos or other show notes for past shows, because that's what I really enjoy about covering stuff. Okay, look, the research is going on now, but it's kind of futuristic kind of stuff that you may see here soon. So shows from 3 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago, they're all still relevant, because odds are the research is still ongoing. So don't be afraid to go back into the past shows and check those out as well. So Ralph is waiting oh so patiently in the wings. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you guys have neighbors like I do, but it's October and the Christmas trees are going up in the yards. It's the holiday decorations are something about Halloween. I don't know what it is, but people just want to jump straight to Christmas. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and bring Ralph on, and longtime Computer America correspondent. And of course, he is our science and technology trends correspondent here for the program. And Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you doing?
Hey, it's great to be back. And I want to stress a couple of things that you were alluding to.
Please do.
Science and technology trends. What we do here is look at where we're going in robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, space research, physics, you name it, across the board. And the key is, and you made this point very well, we're talking about new research that's maybe not deployed in the real world yet, but offers great hope and inspiration. So what we do every Friday, Ben and I do, is hopefully you'll walk away feeling good about what human beings are doing with their brains and their time instead of the horrible real world news that's going on right now. So show notes, again, super important. Come out to computeramerica.com because we'll have links, pictures, sometimes links to videos, all this good stuff. Because, folks, if you're listening to us on one of the podcast outlets, audio only, really come and get those show notes because it'll bring it all to life and allow you to go into the original articles and dive as deep as you wish to into the subject matter.
Absolutely, because Ralph definitely does a good job of the highlights and gets the gist of the articles, but there's always a little bit more to dig into. So Ralph, right. I think with that being said, I'm happy that you're here, happy that you're feeling good again, and I think we just go ahead and get started with story number 1.
Yes, this comes from MIT, good old Massachusetts Institute of Technology, of course, their news outlet, which, friends, if you're not familiar with that, is just fabulous. Anyway, headline here is Desalination System could produce fresh water that is cheaper than tap water. Okay. We've got the link and some images and so forth on the show notes, as I mentioned before. But let's do a quick reminder. Of course, I think everybody really understands this, but desalination is the process of removing salt from saline water, like seawater, to make it drinkable. And it's a particularly helpful method for providing drinking water to water-scarce regions like the Middle East and North Africa. And by the way, the Israelis are really experts in this area of desalination. That's some happy news from that part of the world for a moment. Global freshwater demand. This is really something shocking. When I found this factoid, I just almost fell out of my chair. Global freshwater demand will outstrip supply by 40% by 2030. Friends, that's not far away. So again, the world is facing an imminent water crisis with demand expected to outstrip the supply of fresh water, as we said a moment ago, by 40% by the end of this decade. Yikes. Great. Just another thing to worry about, but we're going to be uplifting.
Yeah. Well, and to, kind of bring a story that I saw just a couple of days ago. I think it was on the evening news or something. Something about the reduced flow rate of the Mississippi River, and there's actually salt water traveling back up the estuaries of the Mississippi. So, even here in America, we have places that have saltwater intrusion, and could use something like this. So even here at home.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And to go on with the story here, a team of engineers, I love team stuff, as you know, team of engineers at MIT and in China are aiming to turn seawater into drinking water with a completely passive device. Stress, completely passive device that is inspired by the ocean and powered by the sun. And we're going to learn about what that's all about. So in a paper in the September 27 issue of the journal Joule, the team outlined the design for a new solar desalination system that takes in salt water and heats it with natural sunlight. That's part of the process of evaporation, and you'll see how this works. The configuration of the device allows water to circulate in swirling eddies in a manner similar to the much larger thermohaline circulation of the ocean. This circulation, combined with the sun's heat, drives water to evaporate, leaving salt behind. And I have a little side note in the show notes that talks about what is this thermohaline circulation. It's part of the large-scale ocean circulation that is driven by global density gradients created by surface heat and freshwater fluxes. It's a bit geeky here. There's a nice illustration showing the thermohaline circulation patterns, as it were, in the Earth's oceans. You can check that out in the show notes.
Right.
So going on, the resulting water vapor from this kind of process used in the MIT device can then be condensed and collected as pure, drinkable water. In the meantime, the leftover salt continues to circulate through and out of the device rather than accumulating and clogging the system. This system is so unbelievably clever because, again, it's passive. There's no electricity needed to make this happen. There's no external power source. This is all done in imitation. It's like a tiny, small scale imitation of what the Earth's oceans are doing already, right? I just love this kind of thing. It's so clever. And going on, it says here, the new MIT system has a higher water production rate and higher salt rejection rate than all other passive solar desalination concepts currently being tested. That's the big alarm bell of the news here, why this is so important. It's just so great. And the researchers estimate that if the system is scaled up to the size of a small suitcase, it could produce 4 to 6 liters, that's about 1.07 to 1.585 gallons, I know that's geeky, of drinking water, wait a minute, per hour. What? 4 to 6 liters of drinkable water per hour, and lasts several years before requiring replacement parts.
I'm curious why they decided to say if it were scaled up to the size of a small suitcase and not something larger than a suitcase, because obviously you'd kind of want as much water as possible, but they chose scale up to a suitcase. Why not scale up to a car or something? I don't know.
I think that's on the roadmap of possibility for this technology, Ben. But I also stress that for third world nation situations, environments where maybe each household could have one of these things, if it's small, it's portable, it's producible at a cost that's not prohibitive. That's, I think, intriguing in itself. Yes, scale it up, that's great. But I also think this idea of a suitcase size thing for an
more
individual
personal
family,
a
personal individual family situation is absolutely
that makes sense.
stunning and really has a great, great impact for the world's worst situations, third world nations, impoverished nations, and all that sort of good stuff. So anyway, so it says here, for the first time in history, according to the research scientist in MIT's Device Research Laboratory, at this scale and performance, the system could produce drinking water at a rate and price that is cheaper than tap water, which still just blows my mind. And then here, to your point, the team envisions a scaled up device could passively produce enough drinking water to meet the daily requirements of a small family, which we've already established. The system could also supply water to off-grid coastal communities where the seawater is easily accessible. And I think that alludes to what you're talking about, a much larger scale version of this technology that currently is at a very small scale. And one of the key challenges the team faced was removing salt and still producing enough fresh water to make the system viable for real world use. That was the big challenge. The key to their new design is a combination of their two previous concepts, a multi-stage system of evaporators and condensers that is also configured to boost the circulation of water and salt within each stage. And the heart of the team's new design is a single stage that resembles a thin box topped with a dark material that efficiently absorbs the heat of the sun. Inside the box is separated into a top and bottom section. Water can flow through the top half, where the ceiling is lined with an evaporator layer that uses the sun's heat to warm up and evaporate any water in direct contact. The water vapor is then funneled to the bottom half of the box, where a condensing layer air cools the vapor into salt-free drinkable water. So super clever. Again, I want to stress, as they do in the article, passive. There's no electrical motor needed for this or anything. You can just set this baby up, let sunlight and water do its thing, and away you go, just like our oceans do.
Yeah, and you know, to relate it to a real world situation where this might be handy, like, you know, when Hawaii is up and functioning and doing well, great. But let's say there's a catastrophic fire and suddenly your infrastructure is kind of gone, and you know, the idea of getting water to the citizens of Hawaii, you know, was pretty difficult, and of course very urgent. Ralph, imagine, you know, just like a lot of homes here in the U.S. have like generators for backup, you know, just in case of like a hurricane or a snowstorm or, you know, whatever it may be, having, you know, a device, you know, hopefully it looks a little bit better than this. No offense to MIT, but prototype in the extreme. But having something that is kind of handy, portable, you keep it in the garage, and then you take it to the ocean and you can get water right away in case something emergency-wise happens.
That's a great point, Ben. That really is a smart point, because that's the kind of thing where, again, researchers develop this stuff, they bring it to a certain point, then private industry usually will take the core ideas, make them into real world deployable products. And your point is that once you have this out there, so to speak, at some point in the future, the possibilities are endless. Extreme camping people might want this. You mentioned a bit about in disaster situations where water supply is interrupted. The Red Cross or whomever could deploy thousands of these little suitcase size things for individual family use, and on and on and on. It's just so I just love the potential of this particular story. I'm so, and you know, the water is just basis of everything. I'm glad that humans are so creative when it comes to cleaning and processing, and you know, we haven't found that magic formula, or you know, in a lot of cases we haven't found that magic formula of just making infinite water that can be easily you know, transport and so on and so forth, you know, but they're getting there, and it's getting a lot better, and it's going to be easier. So perfect. Story number 1. Story number 2, if you're following along in the show notes, let's go ahead and jump on over and let's start talking about solar panels. And you know, I was just talking about blizzards and extreme conditions. Snow. There, I guess, Ralph, I never really considered it. There's a reason why solar panels are in like Arizona, like, or I should say solar farms are in like Arizona and stuff like that. You know, places that are cool and very hot and very sunny. But story number 2 hopes to, you know, maybe adapt that a little bit. Yes. And Ben, the other thing that links story number 2 to our first story is passive. You're going to find out this is just so doggone clever. So folks, of course, we're in fall, we're on our way to winter, And for many people in the United States, that means pretty predictable and regular snowfall. And if you have solar panels on your business or your home situation, you know that it reduces the effectiveness or the yield, obviously. So this story, really, I loved it. The headline here is Scientists Invent Solar Panel Coating That Lets Them Work in Snowy Weather. Subtitle, Game-Changing Technology Could Significantly Boost Electricity Generation During Winter. And I had two sources for this, the UK's Independent and Interesting Engineering. We have the links in the show notes for you, everybody. And we have the pictures, as we mentioned before, which is so important to really fully appreciate this. So here we go. Engineers at the University of Toledo in the United States have invented a way to passively remove snow from solar panels to allow them to keep generating electricity during adverse weather conditions passively. That's the link here. The University of Toledo team developed a strip coating that causes accumulated snow to slide off solar panels without interfering with their efficiency. Gotta love that. Solar panels can generate electricity in cloudy days. I remember a neighbor of mine across the street worked for an outfit called Solar World. She was a scientist. And she said, you know, Ralph, one of the things that most people have a misconception is if it's a cloudy day, oh, my solar panels are not. No, she said, all you need is light. Now, granted, it's going to be a gradient of how much energy is generated by base, but all you need is light. And I never forgot that. But anyway, here, going back to the story here, solar panels can generate electricity on cloudy days. That was the point my neighbor was making. However, snow cover can completely block their ability to harvest any of the sun's energy. So a thick layer of snow, that's another story. This can result in up to a 12% loss of electricity generation per year over a year time in areas with heavy snowfall. Think of the North Midwest and other parts of the country. The new innovative self-cleaning strips can also be applied. Get ready for this. These new self-cleaning strips they've developed can be applied to both new and existing solar panel installations relatively easy. Gotta love the practicality of this thing. The University of Toledo team conducted tests in the United States and Japan by applying the strip to the lower ledge of the panel. The result showed the innovation effectively melting snow without hindering sunlight absorption and achieved more than a 5% improved power generation annually.
Not bad.
Every percentage point is worth it, folks. The university's easy-to-apply strip does not require any energy to operate, like our first story. No energy needed to make this happen, and does not cause any partial shading or hot spots on the panel, and does not invalidate a solar panel's warranty. Let that last bit. It's not going to void your warranty, folks. I mean, is there anything bad about this idea? No, I think it's pretty great. And it says here, working with industry partners, the research team expects thousands of strip coatings to be installed across the United States by the end of this calendar year, 2023. It's so clever. I just love it. I don't completely understand the technology behind it, why this strip causes the snow to slide off, but
The only thing that I can kind of imagine is think like most solar panels are slanted, kind of like your windshield or whatever. And imagine putting a little heated strip along the very bottom. So as the snow accumulates and it wants to slide down, you know, that very bottom edge slowly starts to melt, and that entire snow sheet kind of slides down with it and keeps melting and melting and melting. So it's a very passive, very slow effect. It's not gonna, you're not gonna see entire snow sheets kind of fall off your solar panel, but it's going to keep it from building and accumulating. It's going to let it slide down. So
yeah, and you know what, Ben? Actually, I just thought about this. Maybe you did too. Here in where I live in Oregon, we don't get a lot of snow in the Portland area, but sometimes we do, several inches or whatever. And on our sloping roof, I just realized this: as the underlayer of the snow begins to melt, and it accumulates down around the gutter area, the edge of the roof.
Yep.
I've actually walked out and seen the snow just go just slide off at a certain point. And I think that's I wonder if the researchers thought, wait a minute, how can we manage this? How can we make this happen?
Yeah,
interesting.
and they're trying to get that continuously. And the 5% number, that's not a small number for an annual generation of electricity. So very, very cool. Right. And much your point, the reason we love passive is no one likes to go out and knock the snow off of their solar panels. So, hey, passive, all the better. Passive water, passive light, it's all good stuff. So story number 2, really great. Story number 3, a little bit less passive because a lot of people put a lot of hard work into this, and we've been hearing about the technology for quite some time. But, like we said at the very outset of the show, a lot of this is research that, will come along in the future. But story number 3 is kind of the culmination where finally something physical got delivered.
Yeah, the very good point. So most of our stories are sort of a twinkle in the eye, futuristic research and so forth. Some of our stories are breakthrough milestones in actual deliverables. And to your point, that's what this story is. Story number 3, headline, Joby, that's Joby, aircraft becomes first electric air taxi delivered to the U.S. Air Force. Story comes from Business Wire, really good. And there's a video which you're showing our viewers, which is really compelling, I think. So here's the story. Santa Cruz, California-based Joby Aviation, Inc., a company developing electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft for commercial passenger service, recently announced it has delivered its first aircraft to Edwards Air Force Base approximately 6 months ahead of the expected 2024 delivery date. And by the way, friends, if you're listening to us on a podcast, please, please, please come out and get the show notes. This is one cool looking electric flying vehicle. I just think it's really slick looking, really cool. Anyway, with a range of up to 100 miles and a top speed of 200 miles per hour. Wow. The 6-propeller Joby aircraft is capable of transporting a pilot and 4 passengers. That's significant. That's pretty darn good. Quickly and quietly with 0 operating emissions, of course. On-base operations with Joby aircraft will be used to demonstrate a range of logistic missions, including cargo and passenger transportation. That's what the Air Force is interested in, and will be operated by both Joby and the U.S. Air Force personnel. So they're teaming up together to conduct this deliverable and this experience with how can we use this on the base.
Yes, because I know that the Air Force is super short on qualified pilots. So yeah, I'm sure that was a joke. I'm sure Joby can teach the Air Force how to fly these things before long.
I think. Well, no, actually, you raised a really good point. This is probably a vehicle that's not that terribly difficult to learn how to fly. I would suspect I would
assume not.
Probably a simple joysticky kind of thing. I'm just shooting in the dark. I don't know that with certainty, but you raised an actually very good point, because there is a paucity of trained pilots around the world, for that matter. That's why people are so interested in autonomous, which this vehicle is not an autonomous vehicle, but nonetheless, it could be probably a pretty approachable vehicle to learn, train a soldier to do, or a pilot to do pretty quickly. So in partnership with the U.S. Air Force, here's a new twist, NASA, they're also interested in this craft. NASA will also use the aircraft for research focused on how these aircraft could fit into the national airspace overall, benefiting the entire air taxi industry, which is a nascent. It's going to be a growing trend as time goes on, folks. Joby's aircraft, which has already begun flying at Edwards Air Force Base, is the first, this is what they claim, is the first electric air taxi to be stationed on a U.S. military base, and is believed to be the first delivery of an electric air taxi in the United States. That part, somebody might challenge, I don't know, but that's what they're saying in their press announcements. And it's all part of Joby's $131 million contract with the U.S. Air Force to deliver this technology, to explore it, et cetera. And the aircraft, which was first built on Joby's pilot production line in Marina, California, will be stationed at Edwards Air Force Base for at least the next year, with charging and ground support equipment provided on base by Joby in a facility purpose-built by the Air Force for joint flight test operations. And to wrap it up here, it says the U.S. Air Force and Joby will conduct joint flight testing and operations to demonstrate the aircraft's capabilities in realistic mission settings. That's the key part of what's going on right now. They've got this aircraft. It works. It's great. they're saying, how could we use it? Could it be used for this? Could it be used for that? Is it practical? And so on and so forth. So that's what's going on right now as we speak at Edwards Air Force Base. Pretty cool.
Yeah. The entire promise of these air taxis, and for those who are just listening and can't see it, this thing looks like a giant, not quadricopter because quad means 4. This has 6 propellers, at least the one in the video does, and they're giant drones essentially with space for people, and they're able to deliver people from one place to another. Ralph, I mean, it's very appealing, I think, for a lot of people that, you don't need gas, you don't need motors, you don't need this, that, or the other. Like, I'm not saying there's no mechanics in this, but it's, let's see, there was a story just about a month ago, Ralph, of I think it was like the Army lost a couple of helicopters, like lost 2 helicopters and a couple servicemen in California or something like that. Like, helicopters helicopters are complicated, dangerous pieces of equipment to begin with. So if you're able to make that simpler, faster, safer with, all electricity, you don't have to worry about, getting fuel and gas and that kind of thing to this thing. I mean, there's a lot of application you can imagine for the Air Force. Just getting from point A to point B reliably, fast, and safely. I mean, that's always going to be on their to-do list. So it makes perfect sense that the Air Force would be into essentially giant drones,
passenger drones. Yeah. And you raised a good point talking about helicopters and so forth. Not talking about the Air Force, but when I was in the Army National Guard a billion years ago, folks, we would do a lot of helicopter stuff, Hueys, and I called them the banana helicopters, the ones that have the big, long fuselage and the 2. Anyway, and even the Hueys, which were the smaller of the helicopters, if you think about, go and look at video from the Vietnam War, that was the helicopter of choice. But think about this. If you could transport, 5 or 6 passengers, right? Pilot and 4 passengers, it could be military. And it would be a quieter aircraft, which would have more stealth capability, and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden you start thinking, again, it's a good example of you develop this technology. It's at Edwards Air Force Base now. Who knows where this is going to go, especially if the military starts going, wait a minute, we could use this to transport combat soldiers quickly and relatively quietly, which could be a very, very big advantage in a combat situation.
Yeah, there's... I don't know. I'm hoping in a future where helicopters aren't really as necessary. What is it? A helicopter is a machine that, when running, is literally trying to tear itself apart, and it also happens to fly. You're right. It's a lot of forces kind of working against each other. But this, and especially again, if you're watching the video, the very beginning of this, they kind of show it flying. Obviously it's vertical takeoff, so you can expect the propellers, but then when it's going in that 200 miles per hour, everything tilts and kind of goes forward, and everything kind of working together. It's really an impressive piece of machinery. And again, the fun part, it exists. It's out there. So
yes.
Yep, definitely. So
I just fell in love with this story. I just thought it was super fun.
Yeah, and hopefully we see more of this, not just in the armed forces, but in our everyday lives. Maybe it would be an option for one day. To put it on everyone's radar, and then we'll move on to story number 4. Ralph, I believe Paris, where the Olympic Games for 2024 are going to happen.
Yes.
To get people around the very beautiful, scenic Paris streets that are super tight because they're made for horse carts. They should be using things like this to get important people, athletes, and so on from one venue to another. So expect to see a lot of, kind of passenger electric, people carrying drones in the 2024 Olympics. So
very
absolutely.
Very fun. That's a fun story.
So story number 3, story number 4. Let's go ahead and wrap it up with a little bit of medical news. And for everyone out there saying, man, those rats get all the best healthcare before humans do. That's okay. That's just for now. But this one's exciting.
Yes, this is. And what Ben and I often do, not always, but pretty much always, the last story is something in medical technology and medical science and research and so forth, because that's a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. And a little warning here, this is a very geeky medical science story we're about to talk about. So I do not fully claim to understand it, but it's apparently a very significant move forward. And so that's why I wanted to share it. So with all that said, headline here is Amazing Advance in Spinal Repair Allows Mice with Complete Spinal Cord Injuries to Walk Again. And I'm going to split hairs for a second. Do mice walk? We walk. When you use the word walk, can that be applied to like a dog or a cat? Do you say your cat's walking?
Yeah.
I'm going nuts. I guess it is.
Yeah.
For some reason this morning, I'm going, wait a minute. I walk, but does my dog walk? Well, you take them on a dog walk. Okay, never mind. I'm going crazy. The sources for this story, two sources in the show notes, sciencealert.com, great outlet, by the way, and the University of California, Los Angeles Health, so uclahealth.org. Those are the two sources, and we have a video as well that you can look at if you come out and get to the show notes from computeramerica.com. All right, here we go. In a new study involving mice, a team of researchers from the University of California, Los Angeles, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, and Harvard University, I love team stories, as you know, have uncovered a crucial component for restoring functional activity after a severe spinal cord injury. Oh, the implications of this for patients in this situation is just overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they have reversed, quote, irreversible paralysis, close quote. They've reversed irreversible paralysis in mice with complete spinal cord injuries, and they did this using gene therapy. That's the part where my mind starts melting because I don't have the expertise to fully understand it. But anyway, the team found that regrowing neurons is not enough to fully restore walking, and that regenerative therapies must target specific neurons and guide them back to where they belong, which was previously unknown. So I want to read that paragraph again. The team found that regrowing neurons is not enough to fully restore walking, and that regenerative therapies must target specific neurons and guide them back to where they belong to make the connection in the spinal cord, right? Which was previously unknown. That's the breakthrough. Little side note, neurons. Neurons are nerve cells that send messages all over our body to allow you to do everything from breathing to talking, eating, walking, and thinking, okay? So there's a lot more work to do. This, again, is twinkle in your eye research, but the Swiss and U.S. team says its first step toward establishing the technology required to achieve the same result in humans. So they've made this kind of fundamental initial first step.
Yeah, to show that you can, yeah.
Yeah, to proof of concept or proof of potential feasibility. Now, widespread deployment may be another issue, but at least they've got the nugget or the kernel of this technology demonstrated. So, excuse me, according to a neuroscientist on the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology team, quote, we expect that our gene therapy will act synergistically with our other procedures involving electrical stimulation of the spinal cord. So it's not by itself, but it's a component in a therapy or a treatment process. Now, to date, it was known a complete spinal cord injury prevents the spinal cord from healing itself. So a complete, terrible. Recovery requires inducing regrowth of neurons, which has been achieved to date, but the necessary condition for these therapies to actually restore motor function remain a mystery. So that was the state of things before this research came along. Is what they're
and just a couple of months ago, we covered the story of a gentleman who was paralyzed from the waist down because of a spinal cord severing. But they did that, Ralph, by essentially making like a bridge, between like the upper spinal cord and the lower spinal cord, making the electrical signals. So they just skipped over the damaged part. This team is hoping to reconnect those damaged parts.
Exactly right. That's right on target. So we know that mice or humans with a partial or incomplete spinal cord injury become temporarily paralyzed, but most of their motor function returns naturally. That's because these neurons and so forth, they kind of reconnect over time. The spinal cord neurons that produce walking are located in the lumbar region, but after a partial or incomplete spinal cord injury, neurons in the thoracic region relay communication across the spinal cord that allows walking to be restored. So what they're saying there, if I got this right as a layperson, when you have a partial or incomplete spinal cord injury, your body over time will naturally kind of reconnect the neurons and so forth, and allowing you to, with therapy and so forth, I'm sure, to walk again. The team hypothesized that restoring these specific neuron communication patterns could allow someone with a complete spinal cord injury to walk again too. So that was their thought. They went, wait a minute, how can we improve upon this?
It seems like the body naturally wants to fix it, but because of that break, they're not talking, and therefore they can't really fix themselves. So
bingo.
Yeah, they want to help that.
Bingo. Absolutely. So the researchers used genetic analysis to figure out which thoracic spinal cord neurons aid natural healing after a partial or incomplete spinal cord injury. They followed their axons, the tiny nerve fibers that connect neurons and let them communicate, and found they naturally reach the lumbar spinal cord area. So there's sort of this natural inclination for them to go in that direction. Again, folks, I don't profess to understand
this is high stuff. Yeah.
But I thought it was so important for spinal cord injury patients to have some hope for the future that this could be transformed into a deployable therapy. The researchers noted our observations using single-cell nuclear RNA sequencing not only exposed the specific axons that must regenerate, but also revealed that these axons must reconnect to their natural targets to restore motor function. So once again, folks, if you want to dive deep, if you're a medical professional, you want to dive deep into this, we've got the links. We have the links in the show notes. Come out and check it out. But to me, it's a very hopeful, uplifting way to end today's show of the main stories, because we've got some honorable mentions to note. But wow, I mean, spinal cord injuries are so horrible, and this offers great hope. So it's so encouraging.
The ability to kind of fix this thing, even if, Ralph, I feel like even if this proves to be kind of a dead end and it's not going to be that useful in a real world application for people, I already think that just understanding the processes, and they're talking about tracing down single axons to their natural kind of partner, and that kind of stuff that's above my pay grade. But essentially, they're further understanding how these things work and how they naturally recover. That research will always be useful. Just how does it work? And I know that a lot of people out there think, oh, we already know how spinal cords work. We've known that for 100 years. We know how this works, that works. But no, we're still figuring out how things work on a very fine detail or fine detailed level. So any research into how things work will always be useful. And again, very, very good. So hopefully gene therapy, as well as other surgeries and other types of therapies, will help people walk again. So that's really amazing.
It is cool stuff.
Yep. So story number 4, that's about it for, kind of the regularly scheduled stories. But, Ralph goes out and, we cover 4 stories here, and that takes, on average about 45 minutes. We try to keep it pretty concise, but that's not to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we can only find 4 stories. Ralph does a good job of finding way more than that, but we have to kind of keep the show to a certain level. So Ralph, talk about honorable mentions, and I just want everyone to know that there's more good stuff than what we're just talking about. Trust us. You just have to go out there and find it. So honorable mentions.
Exactly right. Yeah, honorable mentions. This is something we started doing maybe a month ago or so. And I thought, because there's so many stories that I wish I could share. We don't have time to share, but friends, I put them in the show notes, gave you headlines and links. The first one is Webb telescope captures signs of habitability on planet K2-18b. It's significant in terms of maybe finding life ultimately.
I remember hearing about K2-18b a little while ago. I think they spotted it before, Ralph, and they said that was a planet that was almost Earth-sized. I think it was twice the size of Earth.
Yes.
Within the Goldilocks zone, near a single yellow star or something like that. It had all the makings of life. But I guess now Webb is helping us get even more detail.
Yeah, exactly. And another honorable mention headline, microwaves could process silicon solar cells using less time and energy than high temperature furnaces, while also making panels easier to disassemble and recycle. Wow. If you're into solar energy,
they just figured out, Ralph, they just figured out that the microwave is faster than the oven. I don't know why it took them so long, but yeah, no, that's cool.
Pretty cool, huh? Here's another one. And it's artificial intelligence managed to design a robot that walks from scratch in less than 60 seconds. Unbelievable. So hard to, resist that one. And one last one, I think this is the last one here. Honorable mention headline, NASA wants to build houses on the moon by 2040. Very, very interesting. And again, folks, come out to computeramerica.com, get the show notes today. You'll have the links for the regular stories we did, plus all these honorable mentions.
Yep. No, all that and more. And by the way, that robot from the honorable mention, spoiler alert, looks a little bit like a torn sponge. So the idea of a robot might be a little bit of a stretch. But ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, a lot of great news, a lot of great articles. If you missed this show, if you missed any show, feel free to go back to our podcast, and all of it should be available right there. Of course, on YouTube and all the different places you get your podcast. Ralph, thank you so much. Hopefully in the coming weeks we have no interruption, and we're going to work on things behind the scenes, but yeah, looking like a great holiday season, should wrap up nicely. And ladies and gentlemen, Computer America is going to start, kind of kicking into high gear here behind the scenes as we get ready for CES 2024. It's always a very stressful but fun and exciting time where you hear about all the latest stuff. Until then, everyone, thank you so much. ComputerAmerica.com. Ralph Bond, thank you again. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.